Well, good afternoon. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness Patreon. Hope you all had a good Easter. We had a great one, as every Easter is. Truthfully, if you approach it according to this message, uh, I want to do one today. I'm gonna answer a question from the YouTube side. And as you know, I save certain topics here for Patreon, and I have a number of reasons for it. But this is kind of an extensive question, and I think that she's with us here on Patreon. If she's not, I'll be referring to this when I do the next one on YouTube, and hopefully she'll come over and hear the answer. The reason is, and most of you know, is that when we get into certain topics on YouTube, there are just so many people out there. Is it a shock to you that there's a lot of people out there that really don't know what they're talking about, but are more than willing to express their opinions? No, I know it's not. And that's, of course, what we run into. And when I'm really wanting to help people or answer questions or talking about certain things that, there's a lot of wrong information out there. I don't want the people to be misled. And I don't have time to go and weed the garden and everything, and so that's why I reserve these things for here on Patreon, because I know first off we don't we have a higher caliber person here, and you all will be able. I'm not going to cover this completely, and for the newer people in preparedness, some of you more experienced people will be able to fill in a lot of holes that I'm going to necessarily leave because of time constraints, right? So, so that's why I'm putting it here. And you all who have been there and done it, feel free, just load in your advice for the newer people, because that's really what makes this community so helpful to everyone. And hopefully we'll get a lot more of those YouTube people over here so they can get the whole story. Okay, it comes. I won't say who it was from, but it's from a few days ago, and I just not getting to it because of Good Friday and Easter Sunday and all. And her question is, what book do you recommend that has actual detailed lists of items to prepare for an intermediate prepper? Okay, now I know people love lists, right? Love lists. And there's nothing wrong with lists. I think lists are great. I have some of my own. I've never put any of my lists up, I don't think. Maybe I will in the future. We'll see. Probably come into it when I get into the bag system that I use and all. But people love lists, and I know it makes it easy to reference, and it's a good starting point for somebody who just is trying to find a starting point. So, feel free, you guys, after you watch this video, give them whatever help you can. She goes on, I have most of the basics covered that I can think of and gleaned info from various sources, but I want to have a better prepared cabinet than just the basics. I'm a first-time home buyer, been in the house for 4 years, and have recently been rearranging, restocking, and filling holes in preps. But these are basic holes, not more intermediate info. Example, first aid kit, I have band-aids, ace bandages, tourniquets. What do you suggest for a more complete list? I don't want to waste money, but I also want to have good, solid preps. Thank you. Well, yeah, that is one reason to have a list. Is because it helps you kind of focus. It helps you condense and say, well, here's my basic needs, and then I can go to my next needs and all that. I don't really work off of lists so much. I say, and I'm going to give you a list of books here in just a second. I say, look at the life you're living and see what it's going to take to continue to live that life, regardless of what happens, and that helps you fill in all the chinks, and it keeps you from going off. And if you look at it that way, it will perform pretty much like a list. It will keep you from running off and spending a lot of time and money foolishly, and keep you on track to saying, I want to continue to live a good quality life if it all falls apart. Okay, so let me start with some books, because that was her first part of her question. What book do you recommend that has actual detailed lists of items to prepare for an intermediate prepper? Okay. I'm going to show you some books here, but books of lists, there's a million books of lists out there, because the easiest kind of book to write is the book of lists, right? There was even, do you all remember, those of you who are my age, remember there was a book of lists, and then a book of lists 2, and a book of lists, and it was all the lists in the world. It wasn't about preparedness, but it was about, lists. And there are many out there. So, probably just a quick check of Amazon is going to get you all the things that you need. But I want to recommend some here that are just going to be more than just looking at lists and trying to do what somebody else has suggested. This is going to educate you, and it's going to direct you in a way that is going to allow you to build your prepared lifestyle. Okay? All right. Number 1 should be no surprise. There you go. That's the number 1 book, the Bible. The greatest preparedness book that has ever been written, not just for your spiritual preparedness, but everything else. This is the book of, what did somebody came up with? Basic instructions before leaving Earth, something like that. I've never really gone along with, that's a cute, people make up acronyms and things like that, but it is basic instructions, how to live life, how to look at life, how to, the number 1 thing is your soul, okay, your spiritual preparedness. But in addition to that, the physical preparedness lessons are beyond what anybody would need, if you understand it, and if you read it, and if you apply it. This is much like what they say about Atlas Shrugged, right? The book that millions have started and hundreds have finished. Make yours a part of your life. Now, I came across these, and I bought these when they first came out. And I bought a set for my dad when there was, I think I bought him one when it was just the first one out. And then I bought the set when they came out. And some of you will be familiar with these. A lot of you won't, probably. The Foxfire books. Are you familiar with these? This is the old living. I read this and I thought, when I started reading this, I think it was, life in the old Appalachians and backwoods, and how to do everything from how to render a hog to, making your own soap, to building your own cabin, to fixing your own clothes, to making anything you want to know about wilderness and hard scrabble living. You're going to find it in the Foxfire books. Something that I left out? I should have. I ran across it the other day, and it was my old Boy Scout handbook. Now, the Boy Scout handbooks, they're more recently, I wouldn't give you much for, but mine was from the early 60s. And there was a lot of good information in there. But the Foxfire books, and this is the set of the first 3, I think there ended up being 6 or 7 or maybe more, I have no idea. These are so interesting. Maybe I'll occasionally read a little bit out of these just for you all, because you'll get a kick out of them. And it just covers everything in the world. I don't know how pricey they are. Back when I got these, I think they were $4.95 a piece. I'm sure they're a lot more than that. That's probably worth something. It says on the front, mountain crafts, hunting tales, wild plant foods, ginseng, log cabin building, spinning and weaving, moonshining. Now that's an important skill. Faith healing, ghost stories, banjos and dulcimers, wagon making, and other affairs of plain living. And it's a joy to read. It really is. It reminded me, well, I'll wait, because I'll tell that story of when I do the one on, I'm going to do one over there about wilderness living and SHTF. Next one is the Encyclopedia of Country Living. If you all have, and this is a new copy because my old copy was just beat to death, but it just has everything you can imagine in it, natural healing, And I had another book on natural healing that I can't find it. It was kind of I've got books. You can't believe how many books I've got. I've got bookcases and bookcases and bookcases and bookcases and boxes and boxes and boxes. And who knows? I need a librarian to get it all figured out. But it was the book on which my chiropractor told me that pretty much all natural healing, modern natural healing, I mean not back in the Foxfire days, was based, and it was by a dentist, and he really promoted the idea of natural healing and naturopathy. Is that? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right or not. But anyway, that's another one. Basic country skills and wisdom. On the back it says, the Encyclopedia of Country Living. Let's see what it says here on the front. I'll read this to you. And I'm sure a lot of you have this one. The original manual for living off the land and doing it yourself. Live sustainably, raise chickens, mix herbal remedies, plan your garden, build a barn, mill your own flour, forage, make soap. Kelly makes great soap. Preserve fruits and vegetables, deliver a baby, for all those who might need to know that. Beekeeping, spin wool into yarn, making sausage, tap maple trees, milk a cow or goat. If you haven't done that, your first time can be a funny experience. Create natural skincare products, make cheese, and many, many other things. Okay. And another one coming along is this is an important, Where There Is No Doctor. Again, this is a new copy because all my old ones kind of they're raggedy, and so I wanted one to last. And now I'm going to make sure that I keep them in a bookshelf and in good shape so they don't fall apart. Where There Is No Doctor. There's also one called Where There Is No Dentist. Could be very important. Now, if you want a book of lists, and many of you will probably be familiar with this next one that I'm going to show you. And it's not just lists. It's a fairly small book, but it's an excellent book on basic to intermediate preparedness. And it is it's Survivalist Family by Joe Fox. A lot of you know Joe. Well, you know of him. And some of you are subscribed to his channel. He does Viking Preparedness over on Patreon. He doesn't do much on YouTube anymore, but I know that when I check in on his Patreon channel, I see a couple of you over there making comments. So I know that we do share a lot of the same subscribers. Years ago, oh gosh, and I think this one came out. He wrote this back in. Let's see. My fingers are dry. 2010. So it's been out there. And years ago, I saw that he had done he had run across my book, my first book, and did a review on it, a really great review that I appreciated. And I emailed him and I said, hey, thank you so much for, it was really nice of you to do that. Glad you enjoyed the book. And give me your address. I'll send you the others. I didn't, ask him to do a review or anything on them, but he did a real nice. And then he sent me back, he sent me this one in return. And so I read it, and it's a good one. It is a good one. Not very thick, but you know what? The basics don't have to be thick. And there are things in here that, and I've heard him say on his channel that the reason that he wrote his book was because he read a whole bunch of other, preparedness books and didn't think that they fit the bill, so he wrote his own. And he was right. A lot of the others out there come up short, and he nailed it in this. And there's a particular chapter in there. Now it's been several years since I read it, so I can't rattle off everything that's in there. I just say get it. You can get it on Amazon. There's someplace else that he suggests getting it from. Don't remember where it is. But anyway, you can get it on Amazon. There's a particular chapter in there that I told him that I wished I had read it before I started getting my family involved in preparedness, because it would have made it a lot easier, and that is getting, I don't remember if it's getting the family involved or getting the spouse involved, or whatever. But whatever it is, it's read it. If you need some hints on how to get the family and the spouse involved, he's got it. He'll tell you what. I wished I'd read that first. Now that's leading up to what, and like I say, that I don't think about lists so much as I do thinking. Okay, I like things to be organic. Take a look at your life and see, what if everything fell apart? What would I be lacking? What would be missing here that would allow me to go ahead and continue to live my life as close to the way that I live it now? Okay, and so in that spirit, that's why I wrote my books. And if you haven't read them, my books are the Stonemont series. The first one is The Reversion. That came out in 2017. And much like Joe, I wrote that because I had read a couple of other books. I won't name them because I don't want to slam them. That's not my purpose. But I thought, no, that's just, I wasn't satisfied with them. Let me just put it that way. I wasn't satisfied with them, so I won't go into the whole story of how I did this. I've done a video on how it became the book, but that's what brought out my first book, The Reversion. And then I realized there was a lot. The story was great. People loved the story. The books just sold great all over the world, but people had so many questions, and I realized they wanted to know what happened next. And I realized, the more you get into something, the more not only does it answer, but the more it asks. And what it asks is, what then, and what next, and what about this, and what about that, and everything, every step you take brings about choices for the next step, right? So that's why I wrote my books. And matter of fact, I've been writing the last few days on number 7, and it is just spelling out. I wouldn't be surprised, for those of you who asked, I wouldn't be surprised, although I can't promise it, or I won't promise it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's done in the next month. So we will see. And then after that, it's going to take a couple of weeks for me to, send it in, make checks of the manuscript and all that, before it's publicly available. We'll see. But then this series, The Reversion, The Revival, The Renewal, and Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, and Hostages to Fortune, is what I call the complete guide to planning for, preparing, surviving, and rebuilding after a complete collapse of everything. And this takes it to a holistic level. Doing it not from a list, but from a life. How do you want to construct your life? How do you want your life to continue to be after everything collapses, whenever that may be? And it allows, when I first came out with the first one, I won't hold this up anymore. When I came out with the first one, I had so many people, come back to me with, well, I'll give you an example. I gave one to a very good friend of mine. He'd been in emergency preparedness for a long time, and I asked him if he wouldn't mind checking my first. They call it a proof book. They send it to you, and you can't resell. It's got a stripe across the front. And, not that. Well, I don't know why you would want to resell it. You wouldn't make that much money off of one book. But I said, would you read this and double check me for typos and things like that? So, like a week later, he says, "Wow, I've got done." And I says, "Well, did you find a lot of typos?" And I looked at the book, and there was all these notations and everything and all. And I said, "Man, I didn't know I did that badly." Well, what it was, he says he forgot to check for typos. He got wrapped up in the story, and all over the margins were things like, "Why did they do that? And what's he do? What's that for? And what's it?" And then several pages later, "Oh, that's why they did it." Okay, so I approached this. My books kind of approach preparedness, not in a list way, but in a life way of saying, okay, here's what's happening. Here's what's needed. Do we have it? If we don't have it, can we still get it? or how one family, I say it's it's the story of how one prepared family was able to continue living a high quality life after everything fell apart. But not only that, they were able to help other people. And then from that grew communities. Yeah. But with a lot, not just, hey, anybody come on in, not at all. I cover, in depth. I cover preparedness. I cover comparative justice. I cover history. Uh, why our country has fallen apart, and what should have happened, and then how, in my opinion, to rebuild community. So that's it. The Stone Mountain series. The rest of them, I'm sure you can find them on Amazon, and all of them are good. Uh, do buy Joe's book. You'll like it. You'll get a lot out of it. That's on Amazon. Mine, you can get them on Amazon if you would like to. They'll get them to you very quickly, or you can get them directly from me, as most of you know. And our website is, I always put the links down below, stonemont.us. And then I get to sign them for you. And that's how I'm going to spend a lot of the rest of this afternoon, is signing books for new orders that have been coming in over the last few days and getting those out. And that's where you find the mugs and the t-shirts and stuff like that. So I hope that has answered. Let's see, let me refer back to her question. Seemed like there might have been something else that I wanted to say there. I think I did, but I just don't like to answer questions in a here's a list that her final thing example: first aid kit, have Band-Aid, ace bandages, tourniquet. What do you suggest as a more complete list? How many ways can you get hurt? This is the way to look at it holistically. Okay, this is the way. So you're not just making a list, but saying, what are you going to need? What are the boo-boos that life's bringing you? And then what boo-boos do you think you could experience when you're dealing with a lot more physical labor and chainsaws and axes and just things that you might otherwise depend on modern medicine for. You want all of those things. To use an example, and this is far from extensive, to use an example, I know people who stock suture kits even though they haven't been trained in suturing. Okay? So why would you do that? Well, what if you happen to know somebody? What if something happens and somebody's got a big old gash and they need to be sewn up, and you've never done it, but somebody else says, you know what? I was a doctor. Here in my own neighborhood, we have 8 doctors. So chances are I'm going to have somebody real close that has sutured a lot of people, okay? But you may not. But you may have somebody say, well, I was an ER nurse, and I bet I can do it. Okay, and if you don't have anybody like that, hey, would you rather have a suture kit and do your best, or not have one? Simple as that. Have everything you can. And have as much as you can afford to get, and layer it. There was one more thing that I was going to add to that. Don't go down one path too far before you go down other paths. And by that I mean, now you should be really long on food. But try to keep up as much as you can on multiple paths, as opposed to just concentrating on one thing. Guns, communications, things like that. Yeah, you need all those things. You need as much as you can get. But to spend all your time on money on one thing and be light on 5, 6 other areas, that's not going to serve you as well as being, a little bit heavier on all levels, still needing to move down those individual roads. Does that make sense? Okay. So anyway, for you, I hope I answered that question. And my question is, don't look at it as like lists. Look at it as life. And now I'll just throw it back to you all, because this being Patreon, we have a lot of very thoughtful, very experienced people out there who are going to have book suggestions, who are going to have suggestions of their own, how they've done it. And you all who do that will going to be a great resource for those who are newer. And for those who are newer, uh, pay attention because you'll learn a lot. Okay? Okay, I'm going to jump off and do one for maybe. I don't know. I've got other things to do. I might do another one for YouTube, but I'm writing. It's one of those things that sometimes I won't necessarily that I say that I get writer's block, but I get so busy doing other things that it's just not flowing, and my mindset has to be right. Right now, book number 7 is flowing, so I'm going to get back to it. So there you have it. I hope you got something out of it. Let us know what you think. You newer people, ask questions. There's going to be somebody going to answer you. Might be me, might be somebody else. But learn all you can. Do all you can. Okay? All right. Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.